Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chemi. Eric Chemi. Politely Pushy. I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. Welcome to Politely Pushy, folks. I'm your host, Eric Chemi. My guest today, internal, Brent Shelton, here from Bospar, to talk about a big award that you guys won for one of your premier clients. Tell me all about what happened with Smarty and how'd you guys win this award, and excited to hear about that today.
Yeah, so Smarty, if you're not familiar, they're in the affiliate environment, so they host cashback and coupons, promo codes, that type of thing from about 1,000 different retailers. And global, I mean, you can access their website from anywhere, mostly concentrated in the U.S. And then they have a subscription offering that like doubles that cash back, and it provides a bunch of very exclusive want to call them rebates for all different kinds of things, just depending on what your interests are.
You used to work for like Ebates or Rakuten or
Yeah, I did.
similar to that kind of old business?
Very similar, yeah. The subscription side of it was new, and it's something the places that I worked we talked about, but yeah, it never really progressed because those companies became big giant companies, and they didn't need that subscription based income.
So who won the award? Bospar won the award, Smarty won the award, and what is it? It's a PRWeek Financial Communications Award. It just happened a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, it was just maybe a month ago. It's award season, so Smarty actually won several awards. That was kind of the pinnacle of the moment, winning that one. It's kind of a coveted award. We got a little Smarty coupon site here going up against like major credit cards and major fintech. So it was quite an accomplishment, and so really this, I'll just talk about the campaign a little bit. So the campaign was built on the overarching thing. It was built on identifying macroeconomic shifts before they fully materialize. That's the best way to explain it. And in this case, it was tariffs. So late 2024 in December, there was a lot of rhetoric. Trump administration was going to come in and enforce all these tariffs. I mean, it's so that the signals were going off. We recognized that, and we're like, hey, how can we position Smarty, to kind of be on top of this thing? And and if it works, we've created a way to really help consumers that, we didn't know what their behavior was going to be. We just assumed that, it's never good when prices go up and it hits your pocketbook. So that was the assumption. And so we decided to field a survey of research, ahead of that policy implementation, to capture sentiment rather than, hindsight reactions.
Whose original idea was that? Was that your idea? Someone else on the team? Someone from Smarty? Like, how do you guys collaborate because there's a lot of ideas, right? A lot of ideas. I mean, how do you execute on one that people agree on?
I want to take 100%, but being the senior media lead on the team, I watch a lot more news, I'm sure. And very interested in always watching politics and how that affects, especially consumers with my background. So way ahead of it, brought it to the team. We put together a plan, then we brought it to the client, and the client was jumped all over it. But really the big key here was that we were, the timing really became the strategic unlock for this thing. By the time tariffs were formally announced, January 2025, they didn't waste any time. I think it was a week into the administration, so we were able to react. It was already, and we were already positioned as the leading voice because we came out with our news as soon as that happened. It got picked up by CNBC really quickly within 2 weeks. That we were part of a big story. Just shout out to Jessica Dickler, worked with her a lot at CNBC, and she writes fabulous pieces, and she's just always interested in that kind of interesting data that looked, natural and not super fabricated. So yeah, there was just a perfect marriage, and the thing just took off from there.
How did you stand out though? Because there's so many companies in terms of clients, so many agencies, so many media outlets, so many data driven, survey driven stories, all of these kinds of things. What made this special that it stood out versus all the other noise out there?
Well, I think so. A couple things really made it stand out. You know, at its core, it's a proprietary data set. So that's coming from Smarty. Smarty owns it. We did have a partner with Propeller Insights. They always do a great job helping us, especially with the programming. But the foresight was, okay, if tariffs are going to happen and they're going to come out, knowing this administration, this is going to be an ongoing thing. And as the year goes on, pocketbooks get tighter. Really, as we understand, how these tariffs are going to affect our daily lives, because right away we're not going to see it until it hits supply chain and things like that. So we actually built the survey that way. We thought about how can we ask questions and kind of build this up. So by the end of the survey, if you're a consumer taking it, you're just getting more anxiety because, we were asking questions like, we actually did a second survey to keep the campaign going. We were asking questions like, do you think the administration is going to do this? How does this, how do you feel about what's happening right now? And we were able to, the first time through, just really kind of see what their behavior was going to be financially. If it happened, it did. So the second time through was really the key of the survey where, we could get them to react to policy as it was happening. And that's what really made it stand out. Like no one else was thinking about it that way.
And then you mentioned the CNBC article. There must have been many more placements than that. What was the rollout and the cadence of how many other placements you were getting?
Well, so it's kind of the way we built the survey. We were really wanted to measure generic economic sentiment of consumers and really wanted to kind of do it as it happened, like that behavior under pressure. So, we asked things like, what are they going to buy ahead of the tariffs if they happen? What would they delay on? And that, the things that they were willing to delay on, gave us, some legs for the survey. And then, how that spending would adapt, in real time. So for example, we got findings like half of Americans, 49%, I think, were planning to buy less. So that's half. That's a pretty big number. And that was out of the gate. Another 4 in 10, are switching to cheaper brands. And, if you're a retail reporter who talks about the Amazons of the world most of the time, now all of a sudden, what? They're switching away to cheaper brands. I guess you could throw Amazon in that lump on some things, but for some of the more luxury brands, they were in trouble. So there's a story idea right there, just based on data. Another one that really took off was like half of Americans said that they were going to consider secondhand options. So now all of a sudden, yeah, buying used is a thing again, right? So it just really, it gave media, from a media perspective, I think it gave them a clear, like human-centric narrative about tariffs, like as more like kitchen table stakes, that they weren't able to just get, I guess they could go out and interview folks. But this data also served really well for broadcast. I want to say at the end of the day, we had about 1,000 pieces of coverage. In the first 3 months, we had 65 pieces of top tier coverage. So the numbers came out as well as you could expect when you do a survey and when you plan it for a long haul like this, rather than a single moment like Earth Day, not to pick on that, but, we've done surveys for Earth Day and it happens, April 22nd.
You get about 12 hours of news coverage there, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just say those numbers again because they were so powerful. Talk about the number of placements and top tier coverage you got.
Yeah, so it was 65 plus
Yeah.
in top tier.
Mhm.
And so one of the cool things about that was because it was a survey, and one of the things that we do in a campaign, especially when we're doing it with Smarty, is they're low budget basically because they're small, so they can't do like a business wire release over and over. But what we can do is we can do press releases every time we put out a small data set. And that was one of the things that really charged the campaign. We would post the press release on their site, so that gave us some credibility. We weren't just saying this. And then all of a sudden we became a thing where it's like the perfect sales job in the world isn't making cold calls, right? It's someone calling you saying,
Right.
"Hey, what's next?" And that's kind of what happened. That was the moment where I was like, "All right, I'm back in my old business again."
And how much of new media, social media, all the new things that, are not part of the traditional kind of 20 years ago PR playbook were you taking advantage of here as opposed to just, what we're normally familiar with hey, we've got some good stories, we pitch it out, we work with a reporter, we get it in a traditional publication. We know that. What the rest of it? Did you need to do that? Did you do it with social media, podcasts, etc.?
Yeah, so this particular account isn't connected with our social team. They do it in house, but I don't want to speak for the exact numbers, but they just said all across the board, the signups, the engagement, and everything that was happening, it was hard for them to keep up with. What I do know is from the media results, which was pretty amazing. I think I have it here. So we saw a 35% year over year increase in Q1 just in signups. So 35% increase in signups year over year for them that could be 100,000 brand new customers,
Right.
in a very short period of time, or at least they signed up, right? And we saw a 19% spike in signups just from March 1st to April 1st. And that's when the tariffs, like the news of the tariffs, like the media and all the traction was really starting to hit. We were starting to understand, okay, what does this mean? Well, you've got 20% tariffs for everyone in the world. And some countries that supply a lot of goods to the US, like China, they were threatened with like what 50, 60%
Right.
tariffs, which is unimaginable. But that, it created a scare. So right around the time that was happening, it was amazing. Like the data that we had was almost kind of growing with the news cycle as we all learned about it. Another really cool thing that happened and really important now, and one of the reasons why we do a lot of press releases, because in our old SEO world, press releases didn't matter that much, but in the new geo world, for AI search and that kind of authority, they matter a lot. So I want to say we put out right around 8 press releases for this, just one a month, really.
But on a real like business wire kind of thing, you said they don't have the budget for that, or just press release on their website. Where's this press release going?
It's on their website, but we call it a press release. So as we're getting these backlinks back to the press release, then that's when the chatbots notice that and give it a higher authority. I think out of those 65 top tier placements that we got, we had more than 50 backlinks, and we would send all the backlinks instead of sending them to the Smarty homepage. As much as we could, we would send them to the press release. So that was part of the.
So that's a tweak that maybe we wouldn't have done 5 years ago. Maybe we would have done homepage instead of press release link.
Yeah, the old way of doing things, for SEOs, press releases are crap for SEO. So you don't send anyone to the press release unless, well, obviously sometimes you need that credibility. So if you're putting it on Business Wire, that helps. But in this case, the numbers had already taken off. Smarty was getting known to the media of being a provider for this certain instance. The other great thing was because we got this huge head start, we were able to sit down, do intake with the CEO, get his take. As soon as we got the results back, we went over it all and we got quotes. We had ready-made quotes. We were ready to newsjack at any moment. As soon as some new tariff was out, we had a statement. And he wasn't, luckily, his name is Vipin Porwal, very smart man. Wasn't afraid to talk about at least why the administration is doing this and how it's affecting consumers.
And then I know you gave the measurements in terms of here's how they had the 35% increase in signups and all that, but can you say that was because of the PR push, or would it have happened anyway? Right.
Well, it's kind of a, retail sales and things like that are fairly cyclical, and the big events, Memorial Day, you could say President's Day, I guess, is like one of the first big sales events. But other than that, there's not a whole lot going on in the beginning of the year. We just got past the holidays.
Right. Christmas is done. Yeah.
People tend, they blew their money on Christmas, created debt. So they're not out there usually buying at the first part of the year, at least in Smarty's world and what they represent. So, I mean, we can never say 100%. Smarty could be doing search advertising too. They've got a little bit of a budget there, and they do their own SEO tactics and things like that. So I can tell you from past years, though, these numbers, crushed it. They were records for the company.
Right. Like the one difference was this number sticking out compared to the past, matching up with this big PR opportunity that seems to be correlated.
Yeah. I mean, they loved it so much that they allowed the spend for a second survey.
Right. And how did that work? Did that see similar success?
Yeah. It actually worked really well. That's when we knew we had a real campaign and not just a short moment, right?
Right.
We were able to carry this thing. I'm still sharing Tariff's data as it is relevant to the news cycle.
Yeah, it's still sort of trickling along here in a way. Like it's tariffs, it's not. We're off. We're on. The Supreme Court. It's like I assume there's still some value, but probably not as much as a year ago.
Well, and that's so that kind of the way that our administration does stuff. I think they were calling it taco. When he would kind of make the threat and then pull back and make the threat and then pull back. Those actually created huge moments for us to insert the data, because every time there'd be a big scare, our data would be important to the media to, really support those kind of stories. Right. I want to say, and, the stories weren't about scaring people as much as at the end of the day, where we came out of it really well is we were teaching people not only what Smarty does, but, we were giving good advice on how people could navigate the tariffs, and still save money.
Now, how did you beat all these giant companies to win industry awards? Well, what is the award-winning process now in this case when you've got huge budget agencies, huge budget clients trying to get these same awards?
Yeah. So I think really it was our execution was probably pretty impressive, right? If I broke it down to like 4 things, I would say, we anticipated a major economic shift before it hit. So right away, that's how we're introducing how this campaign happened to, people that are looking at awards. And if I'm reviewing awards, I'm like, okay, this sounds really interesting. I want to read. You anticipated a major economic shift. That's amazing. Well, it happened to be tariffs. So I guess you would nod and say, okay. But then, we operate, I want to say we operated data into this sustained storytelling engine. And it kept going. And usually when you see an award for a survey, it's pretty quick hit, like we were talking about before. And we've done tons of surveys like for Smarty on Prime Day and Black
Right.
Friday
That's a single day kind of thing. Yeah.
for a period of time. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a little buildup to it. And then, we evolved with the news cycle that we just talked about, through second phase activation of that second survey. But, most of all, I think then we delivered those tangible business results that really, finalize a really successful campaign. A lot of times in PR, as you know, those numbers are hard to really reflect. We can say, oh, hey, we got 65 pieces of top tier coverage. Well, what did it do? Just like you asked the question, was that the only influencer on the growth that we saw? No, but it was a big part of it that allowed us to continue because, our client really loved the result out of the gate and we wanted to keep it going.
And just name for us, who do you consider as top tier? Like, what are the outlets that made up these 65 plus?
Yeah. So I mentioned CNBC. I don't have it in front of me, but it's a good question. It was like Market Watch, Fox News. I think even CNN mentioned our data. So just to give you an example, and it was all over the place. Sometimes it was on broadcast. Sometimes it was in print.
So this 65 is including TV broadcasts, digital websites, printed newspapers at all these top national levels.
In USA Today, that's syndicated nationally. Yeah.
Okay.
AP picked it up. I want to say Reuters covered it.
I see. So all the really big household names for that.
Yeah, and things that syndicated too, which and the reason the CNBC one was kind of, the breakout moment is because that hit CNBC Chicago, that hit all the major markets.
Right.
And normally, if you're just in digital in CNBC, which a lot of Jessica's stories are, they don't have legs where they hit the national news stream. So that's probably why helped it take off so much. And then on top of that, anytime things are syndicating, it hits a lot of eyeballs and you never know who's gonna see it.
Brent, thank you so much. Congratulations on the award. So what do you get? You get like a trophy, or does the Smarty keep the trophy, or we get a medal? What does it look like? A plaque?
If you've ever done a Zoom call with Curtis, it's behind him. So
he keeps it in his spot. Okay. I'll have to ask him which one of those many awards is this particular one.
Yeah, I think every once in a while though we do let certain staff have the award.
It's like the Stanley Cup when each player gets to keep it for a little bit and then they rotate it around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a senior here and been doing this a long time, so I'm just happy that we won an award for a smaller company against like finance giants. That part is super cool.
Who did you beat? Just so we know, like the level of giants you beat.
The exact names, I'm not sure. There was a major credit card. There was a major bank in the mix. So maybe it's better I don't name them.
Maybe it's better. Okay, I just figured I'd poke a little bit. Brent, thank you so much. Congratulations on the award. Thanks for kind of breaking down how you did that, going back to 2 calendar years ago at this point. So great work.
Yeah, still paying off. So, yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Eric.
Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.